So as many of you already know, Britain has voted to leave the EU, get in there, by a narrow margin of 52% to 48%, which led to the Prime Minister David Cameron to resign, which means he will only be Prime Minister until October. And people on the Remain side are losing their shit. Not only are they crying about the fact that they lost, they are desperately attempting to reverse the decision, whether that be through a petition to have a second referendum, which totally goes against the democratic vote of everyone who voted and just the people in general. They're also blaming old people for ruining their future, or just calling everyone who voted to leave a racist, xenophobic moron. But today I won't be discussing any of that, as I want to focus on one person and one article in particular, which is just so ill-informed and just regressive in nature. Today I'll be talking about Maya Goodfellow, Maya Goodfellow. If you don't know who she is, don't worry. Now did I until I read her article. So who is Maya, or Maya, or Maya, whatever? Well, let's look at her Twitter to see, shall we? Maya is a writer for Writers of Colour, The Independent, and Labourist, and she researches race and racism in Britain. Okay, that sounds very interesting. Well, let's look at her recent article in The Guardian that she wrote, which is titled Britain's Raging Racism Calls for More Than Symbolic Safety Pins. Okay. Well, I, personally, am intrigued to find out about our raging racism in our beloved country. So we're going to start by reading the subtitle of this article, which is Post-Brexit Solidarity with Migrants is nice, but when you're facing a xenophobic abuse on a bus, the jester politics of silent bystanders don't mean much. I don't really understand this solidarity of migrants thing from the Remain side. They're acting like now that we've left, we're bringing back the camps and mass deportation is going to happen very soon. I mean, to be frank, if you've come here and have skills and work hard and pay into society, then there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to fear. You're safe if you really think that people who aren't are in danger. Britain is not the tolerant country it claims to be. That much is clear from the fallout of the referendum. The racism and xenophobia that runs through our society have been thrust out into the open. How is Britain not tolerant? We are one of the most tolerant and multicultural countries in the world. We have so many people who are from many different countries and cultures and religions, and we get along just fine. In fact, it seems to be the only time that doesn't seem to happen is when the people who have come over here try and inflict their culture upon us. So if rejecting backwards cultures is racist and xenophobic, then I guess I'm racist and xenophobic. The number of hate crimes reported to the police is thought to have shot up by 57%. Circulating on social media are videos of racist abuse on public transport and horrific tales of migrants being told to go home. A line we saw printed on Home Office vans not so long ago. Okay, well, I mean, there's tolerant people in every country. So what? That doesn't equate to Britain being an intolerant and unaccepting country. And what are these horrific tales of migrants being told to go home? Does the word horrific really need to be added there? If someone's like, go back to where you came from, yeah, they're a fucking idiot for saying it. But how is that horrific? What is horrific about that? One of the responses to this visible vitriol? Safety pins. Over the weekend, a campaign was set up encouraging members of the public to wear safety pin on their clothes as a symbol of solidarity with migrants and people of colour. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's just another way for people to virtue signal and act like they're such a great person and doing such a good thing, when in reality they're doing nothing. Or a little safety pin on me, and then people of colour and migrants would look at that and be like, hey, you like me, you appreciate me. Well, they probably fucking don't. They're probably just like, oh, well, people will look at me and think I'm a good person. Yeah, I want to feel good. That's it. I mean, you're going to go into the article and say it doesn't really do much, which, yeah, you're right, it doesn't do anything. It's just a virtue signal, which is kind of what you actually admit to, so I don't know why I'm going on too much. So yeah, let's move on. One of Britain's national myths is that it's a tolerant and accepting nation. This simply isn't true. To buy into that idea is to erase a history of hate. Go back to the 1950s and 60s when signs reading "No blacks, no Irish, no dogs" were stuck up in landlords' windows and people of colour were told to go home. Yeah, we're not tolerant and accepting. We just allow anyone from anywhere to come here and let them get on with it. And if they conflict with our morals, we'll cover it up for them. They want to segregate themselves, we seem to have little to no problem with that. The 50s and 60s were the 50s and 60s. Times have changed. We are one of the most multicultural countries on the planet. If we truly were intolerant and not accepting, we wouldn't be doing that. We wouldn't be letting all these people in from different countries and cultures and religions. If we still felt that no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, it's just like, what the fuck? Times have changed. Clearly, you're stuck in the 50s and 60s if you think we still act like that. Britain has been an overtly racist and xenophobic country before, and those prejudices were, to some extent, put in a box and left to fester. Now we're seeing the consequences, yeah, because the Leave campaign is just it's Pandora's box, you know. We've left, it's opened, and do you know what's come out? Hellfire, death, racism, xenophobia. It's just every bad thing you can think of has happened because of the Leave campaign. It's not just people that there's just a small section of people who are just racist and xenophobic. No, no. The Leave campaign had a massive effect on this. Part of the problem is that tolerance implies putting up with differences that you don't like. For some time now, sections of British society have been tolerating immigrants and people of colour. The feelings on display now didn't appear just when the referendum result was announced. 2 years ago, 26% of British people said they wanted the government to encourage immigrants and their families, even if they were born in Britain, to leave the country. That's what tolerance is. Whether we like a culture or not is irrelevant. We still allow people from that culture to come and live here. I mean, you're acting like tolerating things is bad. Tolerance isn't bad. Just because you're tolerating something you might not particularly like, that's not a bad thing. I could understand if you were saying the problem is intolerance, that people are unwilling to accept other people's views or beliefs or behaviour that differs from our own. I mean, I just read the definition right there. That is a problem. Intolerance is a problem, but tolerance isn't. Stop trying to quote it like the problem is tolerance. Just because you don't particularly like something, but you tolerate it, that isn't bad. That's a good thing. Not everyone agrees with each other on every single issue. There's going to have to be some tolerance involved on some issues. Just stop acting like it's a bad thing. As UKIP and the Tories pushed anti-immigration sentiment, pre-Jeremy Corbyn Labour cravenly submitted to immigration being a problem. At the last general election, we reached a state where all of our main political parties were in some form or another anti-immigration. Yeah, those cowardly Labour people admitting that immigration is a problem. Was that really cravenly done or was it logically done? Mass immigration is a problem. So what is so bad when all the parties see that problem? Are they all automatically racist because they see issues in their country? Should we ignore the growing strain on the NHS? The increase in homelessness because there isn't enough homes for everyone coming here? Job wages being lowered because of the influx of migrants? Should we ignore all that and act like we're all hunky-dory and nothing's wrong? And if you think something's wrong, then, well, you're just a racist and a xenophobe. What we need is help in pressuring politicians to take an unshamedly pro-migrant, anti-racist stance. For all those people proudly sporting a safety pin, but who haven't and probably never will experience racism and xenophobia, start reflecting on how people, you included, might be complicit. Ask why the people of colour in your workplace take twice as long to get promoted as white colleagues. Why black women politicians are held to higher standards than their white counterparts. Or why immigrants are blamed for the problems that their politicians have created. Also, that our politicians have created. So you want to pressure politicians to say that immigration on a mass scale isn't bad. No one has said immigration itself is a bad thing. Even evil David Cameron and Nigel Farage, who clearly you don't like, since you just mentioned Tories and UKIP, you point them out. I mean, people just see the issues of letting an uncontrolled amount of people into your country without the resources to look after them all, as well as the people already living here, as a problem. And the second half of this paragraph about people of colour taking twice as long to get promoted, I looked it up. I couldn't find anything to back it up. I mean, if you have the statistic, I would love to see it. I'd also love to see the factors of why, not just black women take twice as long as white people, and like that's it, nothing else. That's just one blanket statement. But anyway, same with the black politicians. Didn't the funny thing, the immigrant one makes a little bit of sense. The government does hold some blame for this immigration crisis, but it's mainly the EU's fault, as they pretty much tell us who we can and can't let in. So blame the EU. Oh wait, you're pro-EU. The union which focuses mainly on migration from other EU countries over non-EU countries. So people all around the world, people of color in Asia and Africa are just left in the dark when it comes to migration to EU nations. So if anyone is racist, I mean, no one is, but if someone is, it's the EU, as they focus on Europeans who are predominantly white and not on non-EU citizens such as black people from Africa, which is what Britain wants. We want more skilled people from non-EU countries to help us. Once again, if that's racist, then I'm racist. My advice would be to take your cues from migrants and British-born people of colour. Listen, learn, and then get involved. By all means, wear a safety pin while you're doing so, but don't fool yourself into thinking that alone will fight racism and xenophobia. Well, I mean, I'm glad you pointed out that the safety pin is just typically useless. It's trash. It shouldn't be worn. It's dumb. But your advice is basically for white British people to shut up and listen to migrants and non-white people of color. I thought this article was meant to be anti-racist. Well, my good fella, that was an enjoyable read. I mean, it was quite interesting, very informative on your character, but not on the situations going on within Britain right now. By all means, call me racist, xenophobic, whatever, but I just believe that mass immigration is not a good thing for our country. That's just my opinion. So, thank you for watching. This has been The Last Reptilian. Farewell.